Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of AJ's Green Thumb. Today's topic, we'll be talking about hellebores. Hellebores are an evergreen perennial that thrives in USDA zones 5A to 8B. Zones above 5A, they die to the ground. So the word hellebores has a Greek connotation. The Greek word is HELLEBORES. Hellen meaning to injure, and boros meaning food. So what that tells you is hellebores has a certain level of toxicity. Some common names for hellebores are Lenten rose, Christmas rose, and in the northern hemisphere, they bloom early spring around Lent. The origins of Lenten rose is Eastern Europe and Western Asia. Places like the Balkans, Syria, Turkey, Western China are known for the origins of hellebores. There are two main species of hellebores, caulescent and acaulescent. Caulescent species bloom on their stem stalks, whereas the acaulescent are stemless, and they resemble a bouquet of flowers projecting up from a matting of leaves and foliage. The foliage resembles a palm, so to speak. As you can see here, the leaves have a palmate nature, looks like 5 fingers. And the species I have here all are acaulescent, meaning that the flowers project from the middle of the plant, surrounded by a bunch of foliage. All right. This one here in my hand is called Shooting Star. Here's a tag. Aren't those pretty? So what's so exciting about hellebores? Hellebores bloom mid-winter to late winter, and they're practically the only other flowering plants in our gardens besides the tried and true Camellia japonica, Camellia sasanqua. You may have some witch hazel that may bloom. Forsythias also bloom around that time frame. You may have a lot of flowering bulbs like your crocus, your daffodils. These are the plants that gives us gardeners a sense of hope in the dead of winter when nothing else is basically flowering. So that's the lure with hellebores. I mean, just look at this. Look at the beauty of that flower. This is what we look forward to in the dead of winter. So the acaulous, or the stemless species, are generally the species sold by our retailers. So what are the growing conditions for hellebores? Well, hellebores are woodland plants. So woodland plants that flower are generally right at the cusp or the edge of the woodland, meaning they're receiving sufficient amount of shade throughout the day. However, there are periods of light that filters through where the hellebores can photosynthesize and gather that energy so that they're able to perform. So, which means the growing conditions for hellebores are shade and part shade. They're generally seen in areas that contain well-draining soil. Now, the soil should be on an alkaline side. So if you're growing them around pine trees, or if your soil happens to have a higher level of acidity, what you want to do is go in with some garden lime and mix that in around the base of the plant. And do that periodically, do that yearly, so that you can kind of sweeten the soil so that the hellebores can thrive. Again, they like well-draining soil, so they dislike very moist conditions. Some of the pests for hellebores are leaf miner. Leaf miner specifically attacks the hellebore species called foetidus from the coalescent species of hellebores. Another pest for hellebores are aphids. The hellebore aphid comes around in late March and throughout the month of April, generally when aphids are very rampant in your garden. Slugs can also be a problem for young hellebores. And the way to deal with slugs is to use diatomaceous earth. Some common diseases with hellebores are gray mold. Gray mold is prevented by increasing circulation around your plants, which means you want to ensure there's sufficient airflow around your plants. Black spot and leaf spot is another issue. It's spread by air, rain, wind-blown rainwater. What you want to do is remove and destroy any of the leaves that are contaminated with that spot, with that black spot immediately. Then there's something called hellebore black death. I know these sound pretty ominous, but it's important to let you know some of the diseases that affect your hellebores. So hellebore black death essentially shrivels up your plant and then it dies. What you want to do is remove any of the affected plants and totally destroy them. And it's also good to know that hellebores are toxic, which means it's not wise to ingest any part of the plant, from the leaves to the roots to the flowers. There are also some very good companion plants for hellebores. The thing to note about hellebores is that they grow relatively slowly. So any companion planting, you'd like to ensure that their growth is in check. So some low growing ground covers that are great companion plants for hellebores would be Christmas ferns. Then larger evergreen shrubs would be camellias, Camellia japonica, Camellia sasanqua. You want to also include azaleas and rhododendrons, and also gardenias. And don't forget to add bulbs to the mix. Remember, bulbs flower during the same time hellebores flower. So you want to include your daffodils, your narcissi, your muscari, your hyacinth, and your snowdrops. So hellebores are a very interesting and captivating plant that you should consider adding to your garden. Right now, during the mid-winter months, we are really itching to get out into the garden. And so to have hellebores out there for some amount of color really provides gardeners a relief. Another thing to note, hellebores can also be potted up. They don't necessarily like to stay in pots for long periods of time, but you can pot them up, and they're great to display in your winter arrangements, your winter container arrangements. They are also great to use as cut flowers, and you can also cut the flowers off and float them in containers of water. So that's a really common display of hellebores. All right, so enough yapping about hellebores. Let's go look at some in the landscape. All right, guys, so I'm out here where I have started a new hellebore bed. Basically, it's predominantly hellebores, and it's underneath this oak tree right here. So as you can tell, I still got the cardboard, okay, peeking out from underneath the mulch on both ends of this bed. Like I said, it's underneath this oak tree, and I also have some Nellie Stevens hollies. There's the neighbors right over the fence. And then I have another one right here. So not sure how they may affect the alkalinity or the salinity of the soil. So what I intend to do early spring is to come around here with some garden lime and work it into soil around the hellebores. So they do look rather beat up, I mean, which is expected. I mean, we've had several snowstorms within the past few weeks. Well, let's get close into them. So this one here is called Pink Frost. It's pretty evident why. Let's take a look at some of these flowers. All right, so there's that one. This is newly planted. This was planted in the fall. All of these were planted in the fall. Actually, we just had a freeze last night where the temps went down to, I think, 20 degrees for several hours. So it may have affected the blooms. But here's a bloom right here that's starting to come out. And that's really it. Wish I had a little bit more to show to you guys. Here's another one. All right, so that's trying to form. Not sure what the name is. Lost the tag. Let's see, there's a tag on that one over there. This one's called Pink Knot Select. So, see how that looks. And it gets to be about 1 foot to 1.5 feet tall, and the spread is about 1.5 feet. So these all get to be a decent size. And one thing to note about hellebores is that they spread. So they do drop seed, and you'll end up getting a whole host of little hellebore seedlings around each mother plant. So that's why I wanted to dedicate an entire bed. You know, this is a bed in progress. You happen to see all of these yellow flags, and all those are my hostas. So I wanted to make sure I tagged where the hostas were. Hostas are also some great companion plants for hellebores. So, all right, so let me step back a little bit so you guys can get a better feel for this entire bedded area. So like I said, great companion plants for hellebores would be like azaleas. I still have them in pots, okay? And I know it's a lot of leaves over there, so you probably can't tell. I've got some azaleas planted over there, like a little drift. Starlight, what's some more names? This one here is called Karen. All right, so tongue in cheek, but so this is going to develop into a very nice area. I've also got I've got a blue boy holly right here. I have a sweet summer hydrangea. Okay, I've got 3 heuchera right here. All right, And if I step back a little further, I've decided to add some structure to the garden. So everything looks a mess. It's a work in progress. But this right here is a 10 by 12 foot pergola. All right, and right here you can see I'm starting to add some supports because I plan on putting some vines that'll trail up. So this whole area is going to be paved out. So I'll have a little patio under here. Anyway, like I said, this is a work in progress, and we've got plenty of projects that's coming up this 2021. All right, guys, so I really appreciate you hanging with me today, and the topic was hellebores. Hopefully this video inspired you or motivated you to go ahead and get some hellebores and include them into your winter landscape. It's really a treat to come out when you see a blanket of snow on your property and up from the snow are poking out some hellebore flowers. I mean, it just does something to your spirit. It makes you know that spring is right around the corner, and it just kind of gets your garden juices flowing. All right, guys, so again, if you haven't subscribed, please consider to do so, and please hit that like button. I appreciate it. And until next time, AJ's Green Thumb. Let's grow.